All right. So last year at this time, we played a game. Like literally this month, 2022, we played a game. Worst GM jobs. The GM jobs you wouldn't want to have. And the parameters were talent of the roster, salary cap situation. What's your owner like? What market are you in? What's your success upside? What's the ceiling of the job? So I went back and I listened. It was really funny the order we had in 2022. We traded picks. You had the first pick and you took Sacramento. You thought that was the worst GM job. And I, by the way, agreed with you. We just were like, where's this team going? And I think at one point, one of us said, well, they have the fourth pick, so that's good. But for the most part, seemed pretty grim with not a lot of movement potential. With my first pick, I took Washington. I think I got good value a year later. Still feeling good about that. You took Phoenix third because you didn't know what was going on with them long term, how the Chris Paul thing was going to play out. Obviously, now they have the Durant, and that's a different situation. I took the Lakers with my second pick. Didn't anticipate Austin Reeves turning into, the free agent steal of 2023 potentially. You took Portland. I took Utah, and we had a whole conversation about what do you do with Mitchell and Gobert, not realizing they were about to trade them for 200 picks and a couple future All-NBA guys. You took Philly only if there was a Harden max. You're very careful. Like Harden max has to be involved. I took Brooklyn and laid out a whole case.
This is all right. So this is the beginning of June 2022. So it's before free agency had happened. Right. Okay. All right.
And I was like, I don't know what's happening with this Brooklyn team, but it feels like they're headed for a cliff. And like 3 weeks later, KD asked for a trade. Then you took Charlotte. And then with the 12th and last pick, I took Atlanta. Not a lot of those teams are going to be left in the worst GM job draft for 2023. Also, a little harder to figure out 12 teams this year because I think, like San Antonio, if they had gotten the fourth pick instead of the first pick, would have been probably the first pick in our draft. Now they're not going to get drafted. I'm going to give you the first pick again. What GM job would you not want heading into the draft and free agency right now?
Charlotte. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I think, the whole reason Sacramento was the answer last year is because of Vivek. All right. That was a big part of the conversation. And then Monty McNair ends up winning Executive of the Year. So they did a great job. It was awesome. Good for the Sacramento Kings. But I still think the owner part of it's such a big factor. And even though the Hornets are supposedly going to be sold here, the Jordan run's been terrible. We've been over it. You have some weird basketball decisions that you have to worry about. And on top of that, you're probably going to max out LaMelo because he's your star. He's your you'll have to do it. And you don't want to do it. So that would be my first choice.
Would you trade Jaylen Brown for LaMelo Ball?
No.
Would you trade Jaylen Brown for LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward? His expiring?
I don't know. Gordon doesn't stay healthy, man.
I wouldn't do either trade. I was trying to think like if Charlotte decided, who's awesome? Scoot Henderson. Let's take that guy, number 2, and we'll trade LaMelo. Like what? I wonder what they could get for LaMelo. Okay. With my first pick, this surprised me. I'm going to take the Chicago Bulls.
Wow. Well,
I don't know what their move is. They don't have a first round pick this year. They lost the Franz Wagner pick. DeRozan's in his mid-30s now. I'm not a Zach LaVine guy. Just feel free to put that on my IMDb or wherever you want. He's certainly fine. Just not personally my cup of tea. He might be yours, just not for me. There's talk about a Vooch extension, which made me super nervous. That was in the news. I don't know if Patrick Williams is going to be good, and I don't really know what the moves are with this team. From a roster standpoint, there's a lot of other rosters I wanted, and a couple of the other teams that I was thinking about, I was like, well, at least they have a top 7, top 8 pick. So I'm taking the Bulls second. You were surprised by that?
Yeah, but as you talked it out, like they're definitely kind of stuck right now.
I just don't want to be in no man's land with the team I'm taking over. And I'm also
Right.
not convinced that team ever wants to spend money. What was that thing? They exceeded the luxury tax like once in 15 years, something like that. So I have an owner who doesn't love spending money. I don't have any first round picks. And the Lonzo Ball thing was just an all time bad beat. Doesn't seem like he's even coming back. So, all right, who do you have?
Yeah, the Lonzo thing sucks. This is going to be weird. You're going to be surprised I'm taking this team as high as I am. But I'm going to take Minnesota.
Oh,
I just
even
think
with our guy Edwards?
I know, even with our favorite player. But, Gobert's going to be 41, 44, 47 million. And then Karl Anthony Towns, who, I'm just not a huge fan of, 36, then 50, 54, 58 million. Player option for 62.0 million. That's in 27, 28. Conley, they have to make a decision on his contract. So there's some depth stuff there. Look, Jaden's been a nice story for them, but for him to be really something, you're going to have to see a little bit more from his offense as well. And that's with one of my single favorite players in the league. Like if I give you my list of 5 favorite players in the NBA, Anthony Edwards is on that list. So you factor in those two guys, you already know this, and the draft picks that they moved out. I think the scary thing is they're going to have to we already know Milwaukee's at some point going to have to reinvent this thing on the fly with stage 2 or 3 of whatever Giannis is. I don't even know if Minnesota will be able to do it in a way that helps the rest of the roster when they have to kind of figure out who they're going to be. Because I think Edwards will be that good. And pretending that he's not the number one option as they move forward is probably just a waste of everybody's time.
You made me think as you were talking that out, does a Towns Dame trade make sense?
Maybe.
And then Portland takes Scoot. And you put Dame and Edwards together with a Gobert as a center, and you got McDaniels, and it's not nothing. If you're Portland, I'm probably hoping I could get more from Dame. Towns is like 27 at this point. I feel like he is what he is, but he's still a 25 and 10 when he's healthy. He's still a pretty unique player.
He's still a good player. I just don't trust him. And I don't know what happens to him in games where I feel like
pressure.
Yeah, he feels like it might just be the way he is so demonstrative that it ends up being worse than it actually is with the basketball stuff. But I feel like he lets shit get to him, not DeMarcus Cousins way, where you'd be like, "Oh, he's gone for the game." Okay, we'll see you on Tuesday. You've got nothing left for tonight. I wouldn't say anything was ever that bad, but I think there's plenty of evidence to say that those two guys, it just, I don't know, man. We've been over it. We've talked about it a million times and I need to keep going over it.
I'm taking the Clippers. No, I'm taking the Clippers next.
Clippers are on my board, but the ownership deal.
Great owner, but the great owner also put us in the position where I have a $210 million payroll. I have a best player who makes an insane amount of money, who keeps getting hurt and then kind of tells you when he's going to play. I have no draft picks at all. OKC just basically has all my drafts going forward for a couple years here. Paul George is very dangerously heading toward that Blake Griffin. When Blake Griffin all of a sudden had like 7-8 surgeries, and you're like, oh man, that's a lot for one body. And then all of a sudden his career went off a cliff. I do worry about that with Paul George. He's had a lot of injuries to a lot of major body parts. And then I don't really know what else I'm supposed to like on this team. And I don't know how they have a $209 million payroll. So I don't know what the fixes are. I think the fact that Ty Lue was out there and about as being available for these different coaching jobs when he was under contract for another year was really weird. And the Clippers were like, fuck you, you're not going anywhere. I don't know what the fixes are with this team.
The salary stuff is
it's kind of jaw-dropping. The spot track pulsates when you look at it. When you do the multi-year contracts, the spot track starts doing like some fucking, like Daniel Craig getting poisoned in Casino Royale, like the weird shaky handy cam. It's pretty brutal. And then you have no way to get better.
Yeah, because the crazy thing is like the numbers on some of the other guys. We were like, okay, so let me go over this again. You're like, all right, Terrence Mann's 10.5, 11. Zubac is worth 11 million, but he is 11 million. Covington's 12 million. Batum's another 12 million. Fucking Marcus Morris is 17 million.
Oh,
17 million for next year. You're just stuck. You have all of these pieces. Gordon's not even close to being fully guaranteed, but they'll probably bring him back, and then of
at
course
this
you
point,
have
why not? They
Right,
remind
then
me of those Knicks rosters from the early 2000s when they just had so many salaries. There was just the only way to get out of the mess they were in was to trade for more salaries. They just kept adding. It becomes like a ladder match for salary cap.
I'm laughing so hard because I'll never forget Isaiah going on with Mike and the dog to explain what he was doing. And they were like, what are you doing? And dog is just like letting him have it, right? And he's going, he's like, well, what you don't realize, Chris, is that when you have an expiring, you can then trade that for somebody else's contract because those expirings are really valuable. And then dog's like, yeah, but you keep trading them for like a more egregious contract.
Right.
And then he's like, yeah, but then those become expiring. Like he didn't understand
it's like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, right. And then
and now he's running the Suns.
Right. And so I was like, what? And then I even had Isaiah on years later. Somebody had set it up for us and we had him on. And I was like, hey, when you did this deal here, but then you said this. And the guy that set up the interview saw me in the hallway and he was just like, he thought he was just going to come on with you and bullshit about the NBA playoffs for 7 minutes. And you started going through his entire basketball reference history. He's like, I can't imagine. But again, he hated you way more than me. So I think I was in the clear.
We ironed it up.
I'm surprised. He didn't want to just hate you forever.
Nah, we're fine. What's your next pick?
Okay. This is actually where the board gets a little interesting.
I have a couple picks left that I really liked.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Wizards again.
That was my next one. Great value.
The problem is the guys that you're going to be paying, like Porzingis opting out to get more money would scare the shit out of me. I like Kuzma. I like Kuzma a certain number. And then my number one dude, your favorite player, Bradley Beal, is not that guy. He's not. I know his numbers say he's that guy. But so the problem is if you're Washington, you're like, we're paying A money for B minus players.
Yeah, our big three is a 37 and 45 team. And then Beal has a no trade clause. So even if you want to get out of the Beal business, you still need his permission. It's tough. And it's so funny because, this has been House's whole life ever since I've known him, of them just having these static teams of big money guys that then you can't kind of get out of the team you've created. No flexibility. This is just what the Wizards do. I think it's great value. I have no idea what Porzingis is worth. You could tell me he's going to sign for 80 for 4 years. And I'd be like, okay, no idea if he's going to make it 2 years. You could tell me he's going to sign for 150 for 4 years. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what his value is. I don't even know who they're competing against, but he was pretty good last year. I think he was like 20-9, something like that. And he played the whole year. He wasn't hurt.
So wait, the last time they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals was in the 70s?
Yeah, it was the 1979 Bullets. Yeah, it's grim. It's about as grim as it gets. The Nuggets were kind of secretly grim too, but the Wizards even had them beat. Okay. I'm going to take Houston.
Yeah, I like this because it's not just about Houston. It's about comparing Houston to everything else because Houston's at least a thought on the board, but go ahead and explain yourself.
Yeah, well, the board's gotten a lot harder. So let's start there.
Right.
I don't know there's no doubt this guy is a keeper guy in that team is. They have some talent I like. They've had a losing record. I think they're like 42 and 140 for the last 2 years, something like that. 42 and 120. I can't remember what it is. It's bad. I have no idea if anybody on that team can be the top 3 guy on a team that can win the title. They ended up with the number 4 pick in a draft that has 3 guys and then drops. they have all this cap space, but it seems like they're going to spend it on James Harden because that's what the owner wants, which is another piece of this ranking is I have to work for the owner. And I just think there's teams that have better situations going up and down the board. I don't really know what my at least I have this. I don't know what that is. So, unfortunately, I'm going to take Houston. Now, they might be able to hit that number 4 pick. Maybe one of those Thompson twins will end up being the best guy in the draft other than Wembanyama. I don't know. But I don't know. It probably sounds a wee bit harsh, but out of everybody that was left on the board, that was the one that jumped out to me.
Yeah, it feels a little harsh until you actually run through the exercise, right? Because if you started kicking around like Detroit, you go, all right, I think they may know who their backcourt is and the other piece they're going to add to it here. Charlotte was the number 1 pick. Orlando, we like their roster. Wizards, we already took. I mean, I guess I could go Pacers and go, are they going to be stuck in purgatory here for a little while?
But I'd rather have the Pacers roster and I'd rather have their assets.
Right. So then you go, okay, what about in the West? Like I thought about maybe Dallas because of the Kyrie situation that you put yourself into where you have like, if you end up giving Kyrie 3 with a conditional 4th year on it or some shit where it's actually all incentivized and it's totally going to be, then I would have already taken them. But I don't know what's going to happen here with Dallas.
But you can't take Dallas because of the Luka thing because at least Dallas always has the get out of jail free card. Yeah. If they have to trade Luka, they'll get more for him than anyone's ever gotten for a trade. So at least they know they have that.
No, they know who their guy is, and it feels like Houston's given Jalen Green 2 years to just see if he can be the guy. And honestly, he feels like a talented player who was just the primary option on a really bad team. So the numbers are going to look good, even if certain nights you were like, "Well, I have no idea what they're doing." And so Houston's the right call over San Antonio, clearly, with Wembanyama, with Utah and all the picks. Dallas having a real guy. The Pelicans, despite their injuries, having a better roster. Oklahoma City, all of their assets. We already took Minnesota. So, yeah, I think Houston's a totally fair one. And if they max out Harden and bring him back, I might take them number 1.
Yeah, they would vault. They would vault up if we did the Ringer draft board for this, they would vault up. All right, 2 more picks. Who do you have for your last one?
Well, I kind of know. If Kyrie goes to Dallas.
That's a great pick.
It kind of isn't though. Like I already went through the exercise and said it all out here. Like
I'm just saying good value.
Yeah, but having a top 5 guy who's kind of like a no doubt top 5 guy, even if he's taking some dings after making it to the conference finals last year and not getting out of the play-in, not even getting into it. That might make it wrong, but I'm adding the Kyrie part of it on top of the fact that, they got a Christian Wood decision to make and every other thing. So there's going to be a couple guys I don't like that are probably going to be under contract there.
The fear with that trade is you wake up one morning, Luka's like, I want out.
Right.
Then what happens?
Because the thing is there's people that want to play with Luka. Like there's guys you'll hear about dudes who are like, I want to play with Luka, but there's nothing really there. And that's probably why they're going to do the Kyrie deal.
I don't love this pick, but we're running out of teams. I'm going to take Brooklyn because, they're going to be missing some picks going forward. I think they're fine. They're kind of in that no man's land. I really like Bridges. They're going to re-sign Cam Johnson. I like Claxton. Like they have, it's not terrible. They don't have like a top 20 guy. They don't really have the roadmap for the top 20 guy unless they can get lucky once they're back in the free agency game. But more importantly to me is just like we had this whole Brooklyn run that really started when Prokhorov bought the team and went all the way through this Durant, Harden, and Kyrie, and where they had all these chances to be more relevant than the Knicks. And then the Knicks won 1 playoff series and it felt 100 times more relevant in the tri-state area. There's just so many more Knicks fans. You're just drawn with a dead hand with Brooklyn. The only way they can change that is if they end up with one of the 5 most transcendent guys in the league, but they had one and it still wasn't like amazing, So I don't, that job would just be tough because you have an owner who doesn't care how much money he spends, but you've had now a few years of, if only that hadn't happened and that hadn't happened, that hadn't happened. And now I don't really know what your nucleus is. What is it? What's the upside of that team? 45 wins max. So it's Brooklyn. I don't feel great about it, but I thought they were the best on the board.
They do get some of the picks back with the Phoenix deal,
Yep.
But they're not going to be picking as high as maybe they should be with a reflection of what their record is going to be. But I feel like this was a 6-team draft, and then our last 2 picks were reaches. Because I feel wrong even putting Dallas down. Really good owner, guy wants to spend the money, gets it, and you have the top 5 guy. You have a no-doubt guy. But if you get into the Kyrie business, I'm immediately out. I'm just out. And so that's kind of my
runner-up choice for that spot was Philadelphia. Because if they lose Harden, I don't know how they replace the asset. And now it's Embiid with Maxey and the expiring Tobias Harris contract and PJ Tucker. And
they have Tobias Harris.
I don't really know what I'm looking at. And the Embiid trade request kind of looming at this point. So I was looking at them, but it's hard to put a team that has a top 5 guy. Same reason you had a tough time with Dallas. At least you have that asset. So you're right. So top 6 was Charlotte, Chicago, Minnesota, Clippers, Wizards, Houston. It's interesting neither of us put Memphis.
Yeah, I think just because there is a version of this thing working itself out here. And when they're all healthy,
neither of us put New Orleans.
Nah, it's too much talent, even with the Zion problem.
It's a problem.
Right, but who would you rather have? Like if you're
I'd
on
rather
the
have
phone,
New Orleans than be Brooklyn. Yeah. I'd
Right.
rather deal with the Zion problem and hope, hey, Zion's gluten-free now. He is? That's amazing. He's down to 250. He dunked over the shot clock the other day. What?
Did you see
This
him
is
sit down with
great.
Malika Andrews? He really understands his diet now. Like, this
He
is great.
does? No more bread
No.
pudding?
I'm just kidding. It's like, that's coming, though. That's coming. He's going to do the sit down with somebody. He's going to talk about, this.
I finally get it.
Yeah, I think Luka needs to do some of this stuff, too, to be honest.
Luka and Zion, they're 1-2 in some order in the can you get in shape, please? Malone's talked about it with Jokic. I thought it was interesting hearing him talk about Jokic was in shape, but not 100%. And now he's in crazy shape and can run all game. And
do you remember when Jokic was like not fat Jokic, but oh my God, did he just lose all this weight after the shutdown
Right.
of COVID? Remember the pictures? Granted, pictures can look really, really bad, but all of a sudden you like looked emaciated and you were like, oh my God, Jokic is, and now he's like, no,
it's like
actually,
Ozempic Jokic.
Yeah, from that point on, he's been, arguably the best player in the league.